Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
It's Father's Day. And for many people, it's a time to remember the wonderful relationship they had with their fathers. It's a time to celebrate fathers. But for some, it's a time to mourn their absence, either because they've transitioned or because they weren't there, or because they weren't the kind of fathers that they wish they had had. So either way, this Father's Day is a time for us to remember how our fathers have impacted our lives. And today we're going to share our own experiences and a bit of information about fatherhood to give us some time to reflect, especially if you yourself are a father. So today, with three Black moms, we've got two Black moms and one that's celebrating her Father's Day with her husband. But we're here to hold down the fort and help us remember why this day is important. So, good evening, Cheryl.
Hello. Happy Juneteenth to all of us.
Yes.
Also, the word of the day should be, if it's not, reparations. But but let's talk about fathers. I sent you something, and I'm hoping you're going to be able to share it with our audience about the myths of Black fatherhood. Because we've always heard in our community that that our fathers are absent. And for the most part, that's untrue. There have actually been studies that have said that Black fathers tend to be more involved with their children than any other fathers. It's like 72% of fathers are actually involved, and this is Black fathers, are involved in the day-to-day care and nurturing of their children. So even though many of us, and this is across the board, a lot of people don't get married anymore, but there are more non-marital couplings with our children, but still we have found that the fathers are very much involved. And in fact, it's funny because if you get Apple Plus TV, which actually does cost, I watched a documentary last night about fathers. I tried to get Sean to watch. He thought it was too weepy, so he got up and left. But it's called Dads, and it is and one of the producers or the producer of this is Bryce Howard, who is a daughter of Ron Howard, as we know from Opie, Happy Days, and all kinds of movies. And he and his father are in this documentary. The reason why I bring this up is because this documentary also highlighted stay-at-home dads and dads from all over. There was one Japanese dad who was a stay-at-home dad in Japan, which was very unusual. There was a great feature on this father, a young Black father who works amazing hours, like 12-hour shifts, and he's there even though he and his child's mother are not together as a couple. The child was born with his son was born with congenital heart illness, so he had multiple surgeries, and this father has stepped up in ways that a lot of people would not. He did not shy away from his responsibilities. So this father was one of the featured fathers in this documentary. And if you, like I said, if you get Apple Plus TV, I highly recommend it for you to kind of get a perspective on the changes. Obviously, there's a lot of celebrity fathers: Patton Oswalt, Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, what is the tall guy's name? Conan O'Brien, and a lot of them have talked about being fathers, but fatherhood has changed a lot.
Yeah.
We're still, and a lot of places still want to do that 1950s model of the mother staying at home and the father going out to work. And the thing is that our generation from baby boomers, because daddy always helped take care of us, because mama worked days and daddy worked nights, so he was our parent during the day.
Right.
And that is not unusual today. And it probably wasn't that unusual even when we were growing up, because we grew up in a neighborhood that was, most of the people were two parent families. Most of the people all worked. We all had to work.
Right. That was
So
the way of
so
life. Yeah.
so that was what we grew up with. That was our norm. So when my daughter was born and I took 6 months off, uh and my husband said at the time, because we were older, we were established, he says, if you don't want to go back to work, you don't have to.
That was good to
And
have had that option.
so I had that option, and I decided not to. At that time, I was working a 4-day week. I wanted to make sure that I didn't know who this little kid was going to be. And I remember thinking, I don't care if she is dumb as a fence post. If she wants to go to college, I'm going to make sure she has the money for college. So I went back to work for a lot of reasons. One of them was for my own self fulfillment, because I loved my job, and because I want to make sure that she was never wanting for anything. That
Mhm.
she, when time came for her to go to college, the money would be there, and she wouldn't be hamstrung by anything. So I went to work nights, and my husband worked days, so we just switched what mom and daddy did. And Sean took
Yeah.
care of her at night. I used to take her into work. He would bring her home. He would feed her. He would bathe her. He would put her to bed. And they have a very close relationship, because we were both parents. It wasn't like, oh, you're babysitting today. No, we were both parents. That is her father.
Mm. And that's the thing. Fathers have to see their job as parenting and not, oh, I'm taking care of a child, I'm babysitting.
Or
Well, it's a
helping.
baby. So, it's only babysitting when somebody else's baby, but one thing that I did learn from our parents' relationship and their arrangement was that parenting has to be a partnership. It has to
Yes.
be uh, a an arrangement so that you make sure your child is influenced by both of you. And I think that was brilliant the way they set it up so that we always had a parent, and then we had a relationship with both of our parents. And daddy to this day, I guess, more the older I get, the more I appreciate who he was as a father. And Deborah Smith says, yes, fathers are involved if allowed. Yeah, I
And
mean,
they should be.
and they
They
should
should
be.
step up. They should step up, and mothers should not use their child as a weapon. And I can understand a lot of times if there's um, hurt and trauma, if the person didn't want their child, or they didn't want a commitment to the mother, or
But
whatever.
even then, even if the mother is, if you break up with someone, that's not a reason to deny them the rights of a father. Or you with another woman now, so you can't see your child. That's mean.
Or
That's
if they don't have the money for child support. And I
yeah,
know that
and
that's a
that's
hard
also
thing.
wrong.
And understand that I'm coming from a place where I had a child after I had married, and we had
Mhm.
committed to this, but a lot of times it doesn't happen that way. And a
Right.
lot of times people don't have the money, or they don't want to spend the money. Let them spend the time with the child, because they're spending the money when
Yeah.
they're with that child, as long as that child is loved, fed, cared for, let them spend time with their child.
Well, that's the
Don't.
other thing, when people think that I'm not going to let you see your child because you didn't pay child support, or you didn't pay this, you didn't pay that. Children only know the love of their parent. They don't know what's in your bank account, what's not in your bank account. But the thing that you can do in destroying the relationship with your child is to make them feel like, well, your father doesn't love you enough to pay for you. And the man may be going through difficulties financially, but we should never, like you say, use a child as a weapon. Want the child to share your anger, want your child to share your disdain and disgust for the man if he is not financially able, because none of that has to do with the love of a parent. And I've seen too many children harmed by this kind of thinking. You know, yes, fathers should contribute financially, but sending a check or even sending gifts is not the same as spending time. It's the time
Mm,
that
it's the
helps you to
time.
actually be a parent. It's the relationship. It's the memories you have with that person. It's the advice you give. It's the things that they do. And none of that has anything to do with whether or not the couple is married. And
And it's fun,
sometimes
yeah.
we tend to
That,
think
yeah.
it does, like, oh, well, they're not married, he's not being a father. But there's a whole lot of couples that may not have a license from the state or have gone through some marriage vows at a house of worship. But I see these fathers taking their children. They got their baby in the pouch, going to
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
store, and pushing them in the cart, and playing with them at the park, and all these things, taking them to school. They're doing these things, and no, they may not be the legal spouse, but they're the father, and they're proud to be fathers. And this is what we have to encourage,
And
is
in
less
fact,
judgment over what we think is the appropriate relationship, you know, verified by the state and the church. But what are the two people doing in the life of that child? How are they impacting the child? Because most people that I know that grew up in a family with both parents, and they may have been married or they may not have been married, but it didn't matter to the child. The child only knew they had the love of their parents.
yes.
And
And
that's
in fact, it's funny because, a lot of times we talk about consistency and this and that, and your father is going to do things different from your mother. And
yeah.
that is the most important thing they can do, is to be different, because what they're showing you is that there's different ways of doing things. And, of course, we always think that we know the best way and the only way to do something, but there are just different perspectives that your father gives. Now, daddy was better at teaching driving. When
Mm,
the time came to drive, mama was a nervous Nelly and would practically, because that's when we had the bench seats, remember that? So that's old, how old we are. But she'd
yeah.
practically sit on your lap. Daddy was just like really calm. And if you knew daddy, daddy had a big voice. And when he got mad, he got loud. And I remember saying to Barbara, when it was time for me to learn how to drive, I said, I'm really, really scared because I want daddy yelling at me. That'll make me nervous. And she says, don't worry, he's not going to yell until he knows
That was the one time, and he always stayed calm because he
he
never wanted to
always
round
was
you.
calm. And this is the funny thing, is that, and he's becoming more and more like daddy every day, so it's really scary. But when it came time for Sean to teach Sarah to drive, I realized I turned into mama and he turned into daddy. And I finally said, you know what? You're better at this than I am. And you know how hard that hurts you to have to admit that somebody else is better at something. But I realized, you know what? His demeanor is better for her because I make her nervous. And I just had to
Yeah.
step back. And she's a very good driver. She's funny because she says, oh, don't worry about it. I drive like a granny. I said, good. She doesn't speed, she doesn't, take risks. But the thing is that she learned better because of his patience. And I had to appreciate the fact that he was better at that. And there are other things that he's better at than me. He doesn't watch this show, so I can admit that. But
We talk about our family because they don't watch the show, so we
yeah, so we can say whatever. But there are a lot of things like that that he's just more he's he has a different perspective. He has a different perspective. And Daddy was
Yeah.
very, very good at a lot of things. There were other things that I didn't know until much later after Daddy had gone on that he was better at. Mama was always
Yeah.
really shy and Daddy was always really outgoing.
Outgoing
So you
friend
see who
maker
so you
everywhere.
see who the 3 of us always, are,
Yeah.
even though
Yeah,
I
we all
tend to
turned out
be
kinda outgoing, yeah.
yeah, even though for some of us we're secretly introverts, but
Yeah.
it wasn't until years later that I found out because we would always have our mother's niece, who's our cousin, our first cousin, come over with her family. And she said to me, she came to visit me one time, and she said, your father was the one who always invited us over.
Mm.
I never knew that, but he did
Even
that
though
because
even though she was our mother's relative.
and that she wanted it, but she's not the type of person who could call and say, "Why
Invite
don't you all
someone.
come over?" And he was the one who did that for her. And so you learn these things about your parents sometimes years later, uh, and you really appreciate who they were when they weren't just being your parents.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's just so much, and I was, I was even. I remember I was talking about this on another show that I had done. How do you measure the men that you allow in your life? And I said I have a standard that my father set. In order for me, and I have 3 tests, but one test is when my car breaks down, you come
Not
and
if,
get me.
when.
Not if, because it always was a win on my cars. When it breaks down, you come and get me. You don't tell me, oh well, call somebody. No, you come and get me, and you get whatever alley mechanic you got, and you bring them and you come and get my car. That was the standard that he set. And so anybody in my life, that was what they had to meet. And of course, Sultan, he did meet the standard when my car broke down. He had his alley mechanic come and fix it and get me home. That's just, you have to do that. Even
Yeah.
now, in anybody that I would consider, which, that has happened because my cars break down.
When it breaks
So
down.
when they break down,
When.
if
She's
you
hard on cars, y'all.
but every time it breaks down, I learn something else about cars. You
Yes.
learn what a carburetor does. Learn what the brake shoes do. Yeah, I mean, you just learn every time something breaks down. You learn more about a car. You learn what the.
Or you take care of it on the, from
Well,
the
yeah,
beginning.
but see, that's the thing, to know what that part does. That was helpful, because when
Yeah.
it doesn't do that, then you know what it does. But yeah, I mean, that was the standard. And sometimes he did have more patience and things that I had. Uh, and this one time, I guess I kind of felt bad. I think Zakia was very young. She was under 2 years old, I believe. And I was washing her hair, and I guess I was getting impatient that, she was, because you know how we had our hair wash, lean over the sink and you pour the water.
Yes.
And she just kept crying and wouldn't stand still. And I'm like, I ended up just kind of throwing the water on her head. And she started crying. And Sultan just said, wait a minute, let me do this. And what he did, he just put her over his lap. And I think, the bathtub, I guess he was sitting next to, and just, leaned her over, and she was on his lap, and he just poured the water, gently through her hair. And I felt bad that I had just been so impatient with
Yes.
her
Yes.
not sitting still, not standing still to me. I can do it. And I realized, sometimes, but like you say, fathers do things better. And
Sometimes they
have
do things
more
better.
patience. And, sometimes we in our agitation, we want to do it this way. And maybe that's not the way it works for the
A-
child.
And it's funny that you have that standard about, somebody coming to get you because, Sarah, we always said Sarah, who we hope whoever Sarah ends up with, and she's not looking, uh, her standards are going to be so high
Yeah.
because she's been treated like the princess,
Well,
you know,
that's important.
future queen. I always say, well, she's a future. Well, now she's 23, so now she really is a queen, but she doesn't put up with any stuff. And I'm telling you, before Lyft and Uber, if you call in the middle of the night, and even now, if you call us, we will
Yeah.
come. We will
Before
come.
yeah,
And that,
before Lyft and Uber, yeah, you don't say,
you
"Oh, well,
know, we would
find
always
a
just
bus
come.
or, walk." No, no.
No,
And
no, we
that's why it's important that when you're raising a daughter, that she see a standard of fatherhood. She see a standard of manhood in her father. And that's what's challenging for women who did grow up without their fathers, because they may not have the standard of how to judge when somebody really is worthy of your time. Now we have this and let me share this here.
I'm always reminded of Chris Rock's. I saw part of this, and this is before he obviously divorced, but he had just had a daughter, and he had just said his whole purpose in life was to keep her off the pole. Because if you are a father and your daughter is on the pole, then you have, well, messed up. So
Yeah, because she's looking for love. That means she didn't get it from you.
yes.
So what did you do? Or
There's
what
a
did you
part
not?
in here that I wanted you to move down on. I sent you this whole thing,
Okay.
but it
Yeah,
said
because
about 72%. It says the CDC, if you'll go down, if you'll scroll down on this.
okay, because this one talks about family living arrangements, and 42% is two parents and
Yes,
46% mother only. This is black children now. For all children, 70% are two parents and 21% are with the mother only. So we do have a larger portion of families with it's just the mother only. And there are a whole lot of historic reasons for that. We'll talk about that. That's a whole nother show.
yeah,
Uh,
that's the truth. But we also understand, like I said, if you go down there, you'll see, if you'll scroll down. I don't know if you
School.
can scroll down on that, but 72% of our men are engaged with their children. Like I said, even higher than white males. So we still, we kind of subscribe to this myth about, absentee fathers. And it's down there where it says CDC. It starts with the thing about the CDC. If you'll see it, you might want to highlight that. Uh, it's a I think it's the one I sent you. Yeah, it's in that. But go down, go back up, or maybe farther down. Is there another page?
Let me see here.
But the thing is that our men are should be celebrated. They should be celebrated because they do
I don't
care
see
about
them.
their children. And let me see if I can read it then. Let me see if I can
This
find it.
is Black families, COVID,
Oh no, I'll read it to you because I sent it to you.
support Black demographics. Okay, so this is
Yeah.
a publication, Black Demographics, the African American population. And this chart breaks it down.
Mhm.
Living with two parents, married to each other, 38%, 4% not married to each other. Living with mother only, uh, 31% never married, 7% divorced or widowed, 5% married or separated. And then living with father only, 3%, living with neither, 7%, no parent present. Um, so, and we
So
know that demographically, there are a lot of uh, children who are living with a single parent,
or
um, but it's not always the mother, because I know a lot of single fathers as well.
yes. Okay, this is what I have here. This thing you couldn't find, but it's on it. According to the CDC, 58% of Black fathers live with one or more of their children And an even larger majority, 72.7% of Black fathers talk with their children about things that happen during the day several times a week or more, whether they live with their children or not. This is only one example that illustrates how fathers are involved with their children as opposed to fatherhood being defined by living arrangements. This is also an example of how the 70% out of wedlock statistic can be very misleading, especially when used to emphasize Black fatherlessness or policies and issues regarding the Black family. These facts do not negate the real issues and challenges of Black families and relationship issues within the Black community. They just add context for a more productive study or discussion. So that's
Mm,
the thing is that we need to we need to embrace our families. We need to embrace our children's fathers, and even if they're not the stereotype, even if they're not the 1950s norm, we're still families.
we're still families.
And we need to understand that our fathers, you know, many of them, they're doing the best they can, you know,
Yeah, they're
and
doing the best they can.
and we need to embrace them, and we need to celebrate them.
Mm,
Celebrate them every day, not just on Father's Day. Celebrate them when they bring you the diapers, or they bring you the formula, or they pick up your kid from school, because your kid knows that daddy. And let's also reach out and celebrate the men who take up the father role:
yes,
stepfathers,
yes,
uncles, coaches, mentors, youth pastors, people who step in, and big brothers, big sisters. One of my friends has started a relationship with a young man when the young man was like preteens. That young man now is 50, and they still have a relationship.
and
They,
and it does last a
it
lifetime. When you
lasts a
father
lifetime.
someone,
Yeah.
it
So
lasts a lifetime, and your impact lasts a lifetime. But we
yes,
are gonna go today, but we'll be back next week. And we want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, share this show, and feel free to comment about the impact of your father in your life. Until next time, I'm Naima.
I'm Cheryl, and we're two of three Black moms. Happy Juneteenth, everybody. Bye.
Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.